Yeah, so the question was about the DSEG program and how it was, being the first group or one of the first group of people, and what the change was. Because I did speak to a teacher who was a teacher for about 25 years at Long Middle School. Her name was Dorothy Borson, and she was a white woman. And what she said to me was that the integration program that introduced in St. Louis for Black students completely messed up the Black schooling in the city. Like the St. Louis Public School District was one that was competitive, and it went from being competitive to being underfunded, um, undersupported, and also unaccredited.
Basically, the group that pushed this forward, they were not dissatisfied with their school. They were dissatisfied with the inequities in school funding, which, by the way, still exists.
It does.
Pattonville School District, shout out to Pattonville School District. I'm Ritenourville, so the two districts are rivals, and I show up at Pattonville stuff, wear my Ritenour stuff all the time. I would not do it any other way.
No, you should tell your dad not to do that. Say no to him.
I'm out here in my Ritenour gear all the time. Also a proud Pattonville parent. And, but, a few years ago, and this is a poignant example, there was a point at which maybe it was 2017 in which Pattonville received $18,000 per student, and that same year Ritenour received $8,000 per student. And these are two school districts that share municipalities. St. Anne is split between Ritenour and Pattonville. And I tell people all the time that Pattonville is the best district and Ritenour is the best value. I buy these two districts, but the fact that kids can live across the street from each other and there's that kind of gap in the resources, that's a systemic issue. That has nothing to do with the quality of teaching, because quite frankly, all the districts are drawing from the same teacher pool. They're drawing from the same administrator pool. The difference is the funding. When you talk about the differences in the schools, the line is drawn at the funding, which shows up when you look at the building maintenance and that kind of thing. When you talk about the quality of education itself, some of the greatest educators I've ever worked with have come out of St. Louis Public and come out of the Black community. And you can look at the data. Not only do Black students perform better when they have a Black teacher, white students perform better when they have a Black teacher.
Right.
I have worked with, shout out to all my white teachers. They are wonderful. And just about every one of them that I work with, they are seriously here about the work. Like, no disrespect. But if I just took all the Black teachers I worked with over the years and just didn't pick good or bad, just took them all and went somewhere and started a K through 12 school, I promise you, all of the kids would perform. So it wasn't a question of the quality of the education. It was a question of fair distribution of resources. And the answer was to, instead of sending resources to those communities, the answer was then and is now to take the students out of the communities and send them to different schools. So you're stealing somebody's out of someone's pocket, and you say, hey, you're stealing from me. Oh, so they say, oh, okay, so I'm just gonna take your clothes too. Yeah. So you're taking the human capital and you take the best and brightest out of those schools. So I leave St. Louis Public, I go out to Parkway. I love Parkway. That's my, at Parkway North, we still keep up with all my classmates, class of 94, shout out Vikings. But brain drain from St. Louis Public, that's me leaving and going somewhere else. That's you. You're a star student at St. Louis Public, but you show up on Rockwood's test results when it all comes down, and then people look at those things and say, well, this is a better district because look at the test scores. And any thinking rational person understands it's not about the test scores. The test scores are as much a reflection of the realities in the community now, much more so than what did the school actually contribute. But by looking at the test scores, we can continue to feel okay with the fact that we have a system that funnels resources unfairly. And so kids continue to bear the brunt. And instead of dealing with those problems, we make a boogeyman out of St. Louis public schools, out of Normandy schools, and say these schools are bad and write stories in the paper about how bad these schools are. When I know the educators who work there, they are going all in for kids.
So hard, yeah.
Day. And the kids who are there, the kids who struggle make headlines, But the majority of the kids are just like the majority of the kids in every school. They show up, they work hard, they do the best they can with what they have.
People don't want that money mess with number one. I'll tell you, Ladue, Clayton, Kirkwood, Pattonville, Brentwood, possibly, certain school districts. But y'all, you know that when you mess with that money, you're gonna give them, the common narrative is that we give someone else more, we get less, which to a certain degree could be possible, but I think there's an equitable system, to be able to create educational equity, through the system that we have and, maintain teachers and whatnot.
And I think that not just Black and brown bodies, but diverse spaces are vastly undervalued by the marketplace. And we have an opportunity to advance forward. And the pitch that you make to people, one of the pitches that you can make from a libertarian, capitalist, right-leaning standpoint is like, there's money in it for you if we have a diverse and well-educated workforce from the top to the bottom.
I think that's kind of our common model of a school, is a school that is just diverse. It just is. But when you come into St. Louis, we've had so many amazing minds and wonderful, hardworking people that have come through St. Louis, Black people. Our city center is 56% Black. A lot of great, hardworking Black people who have come through our city, and we all see this glaring issue. If we could get rid of this, we automatically solve problems. School to prison pipeline. We already, give more equitable opportunities for Black people. This is the number one and the most glaring issue in St. Louis. And like I said, all those benefits that I laid out could be right in front of us. Our 56% Black city center, all of us could have those equitable opportunities starting in the schools. Schools is where everything starts.
Our white students, who I love, they have had the added benefit of all their lives walking in and seeing someone who looks like them. And I can count one Black male teacher that I had, and I didn't have him until 10th grade. Dr. William Jenkins, shout out, mentor. I think about him all the time. And I just saw that he just popped up on Facebook, so I need to reach out to him. He got like two friends, so he's probably just getting there, but
yeah,
track him down. But I was a 10th grader before I had him as a teacher, and he was one of two that I had in 13 years K-12. And then I had one in college in my undergraduate program. So talk about representation and seeing people that you can identify with. We want to have them in schools, but it's going to be a slow process of cultivating. It's been something we've been really intentional about in Ritenour. Mm-hmm. Even as progressive as we've been, we're as far behind the curve as we're ahead of most, but not near where we need to be.
You guys are talking about representation. How important it is to have some type of representation in schools for students. Representation matters, and representation is vital for student success. But the problem is that a lot of Black students don't want to be teachers, especially in these county schools. I mean, it's a big problem. Even for our school, like in Rockwood School District, they have this whole initiative, which is Welcome Home Rockwood. So they take these high school students and they put them through this like teaching program so that when they graduate, they will immediately be hired into their high school, into Rockwood Summit, or any Rockwood high school that they went to or that they attended. And so it's so bad that a lot of Black students don't even want to teach at the school that they went to high school at. And so when you're talking about representation, and that goes for any type of minority, what is the incentive for a student who has gone through this program, who's gone through the system and has been, all the things that you can think of, invalidated, insulted, disrespected, all of these things, and to go back and say, well, let's just do it all again.